Hello, my name is Pedro Ángeles, and in the next few minutes, I will present my personal perspective on a brief list of the main initiatives developed in Mexico related to digital transformation, as well as the routes that we will try to formalize in the immediate future. Let's start with some general ideas to contextualize the outlook of what is happening in Mexico regarding the country's most relevant experiences in the documentation of cultural heritage and information technologies. First, the documentation of the groups in the domain of cultural heritage in Mexico reflects the conflicts on how they organize the information of the world of objects they contain and the developments of information technologies. The concern of, quote, having a web page that includes online collections, unquote, is becoming more and more evident, without knowing that this implies a work of, quote, digital documentation, unquote, and not merely digitization. In Mexico, different digitization initiatives of the most diverse origins and scope have been carried out during the last 20 years. Among them, I highlight the Biblioteca Nacional Digital de México project, which began in 2002, and the Archivo del Centro de Estudios Históricos de México CARSO, whose digitization project dates back to 2008. They both created web pages that include millions of digital objects. The Hemeroteca Digital works with OCR and a technology similar to that of the linguistic corpus, generating the forms for the recovery of its information. For its part, the Centro de Estudios Históricos de México structured an extensive database with Dublin Core. Their navigable solutions are highly functional, but in both cases, the searches allowed to human users are cumbersome, while machine users have no access possibilities. All this vast accumulation of information is enclosed on their own islands. Other Mexican projects directed their digitization experiences, investing many resources, but not appearing yet on the web, or if they did, they were left without the opportunity to widely reuse their resources. This reminds us of the words of Murta Baca, pronounced in the 2014 CIDOC Congress, quote, digitization is not equal to access, unquote. We must learn the principle that access doesn't depend on digitization, but rather on structuring our documentation to support digital reconversion and all the clarity that we can have when relating it to appropriate information technologies. Less than 2 years away, 3 different online initiatives were made public. They are very relevant by their interest in formalizing the cultural heritage data, including, within different degrees of interest, data from Mexican museums. Mediateca del INA, Instituto Nacional de Antropología e Historia. After 4 years of work, it formally began its activities on April 11, 2018, and now has access to just over 500,000 digital objects. Mexicana, Secretaría de Cultura and Agenda Digital de Cultura, has been available since October 23, 2018, and today it offers a description of more than 50,000 digital objects. Memoria Histórica y Cultural de México, Gobierno de México. Available as of February 19, 2020 in its first phase, it includes the representation of more than 53 digital objects. Each of these projects is in different stages of maturity. They are all relevant to the Mexican artistic and cultural heritage because they open the way with different technological approaches and a growing interest in using international standards for the organization of information. All these projects also emerged with the promise of eventually contributing to formalizing the catalogs and documentation of Mexican institutions. Despite these positive aspects, these projects are also a transparent window where one may see contradictions and shortcomings of the documentation created from each provider. The reach of each website is different, and if all cultural heritage organizations are at the base of an imaginary pyramid, the Mediateca only works with those attached to the National Institute of Anthropology and History, and Mexicana does so with those attached to the Ministry of Culture, including as well the National Institute of Anthropology. In contrast, Memorica contemplates the previous ones, although it also plans to include public and private organizations, including institutional repositories of universities and the nation's archives. Eventually, the information consultation portals of Mexico's cultural sector will formalize this ecology in what we must consider a work in progress. In our environment, in many cases, and for different reasons, museums and other providers lack access to adequate information technologies to formalize their information systems. But more importantly than that, they also, in many cases, lack the knowledge necessary to think on this documentation, not as a resource concentrated in your archives, but as an integrated system. There is therefore an important task to train human resources that are skillful of a documentation culture, whose solvency helps to put the house in order, and with it, to build better structured information. It will be important that in Mexico, the development of human resources and technological infrastructure is not concentrated in a unipolar way. And it will be equally important to promote the destruction of the information silos that occur within the Mexican cultural sector, but also to be attentive to what happens between the other information producing sectors. On the horizon, we must formalize the necessary commitments with open science and understand the value of linked data and open linked data. But this is strictly related to the skills that we can develop even more in the field of a culture of museum documentation, as well in our understanding of how we want information technologies to serve us. Something is happening in Mexico, and we are not satisfied with our progress. We want to improve our experiences and use the information on cultural heritage as a source of inspiration, innovation, and development, and always to promote the best digital transformation of our organizations. Thank you. Gracias.